Welcome to the Irresistible Workplace Initiative podcast, the place where leaders come to learn how to create a workplace where people would be crazy to leave. Join your hosts, Holley Potts and Tony McConnell, as they serve up stories, strategies, and real talk that you can actually use today. Let's get into it.
All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Irresistible Workplace Initiative podcast, the place where leaders come to find out how to make your workplace irresistible. And your host here, Holley Potts.
Hey, I'm Tony McConnell, NC.
right.
Trying to help you make your workplace a place where people be crazy to leave.
That's right.
Crazy
to leave. So today we're going to just talk quickly about a new endeavor we've got coming up. We have
Excited. Can't wait.
Yes, we have two current table groups meeting right now that are made up of organization leaders, business owners, CEOs, or leaders of their organization. And we're going to start one that's a little different this time. And it's not going to be for necessarily the leader of the organization. How would you describe it, Tony, this new table we've got going?
I kind of describe it as that sweet spot in the organization, the middle management area, the guys that know everything, guys and girls that know all of it, everything that's going on above and below. They probably have a better pulse on what's going on. Designed for people who are fairly new at their roles or getting groomed or to grow into roles to sort of help them. It's a 12-month defined course that we're going to do, but it's also still going to have a little bit of the benefits of the first two tables where we don't go in every month to talk to somebody, talk to them and teach them. There's going to be a lot of passing back and forth of the material and just getting everybody's input. And we'll see, let things go where they go sometimes. But it's not a rigid, the 12-month formula that we have as far as what we're going to be talking about each month isn't rigid enough that we can't adjust it if there are pressing issues that we need to talk about. Because we kind of go with the consensus.
Yeah. So we've talked about having somebody at our table one and table two, people who can affect change in their organization. Mm-hmm. But this is going to be, they can certainly affect change, but it would be great to have the leader of an organization at a leader table and then maybe people within their organization at this one. Right. We're calling it leadership, management, and accountability so that they can affect change. Like, how do we get this concept of irresistible workplace to the people who are actually managing the people?
Right. And they're the ones that have a big impact on cultures.
That's right. They, like you said, they know what's going on because they've got their foot in both worlds, right? They got their foot in one. Well, the boss tells me to do this, and then now I've got to tell you to do this, and how that works. So we're really excited about it. Some people have said that middle management is where the most pain in an organization can be felt. But can we reframe that in a positive way? Like, what do we think can happen there that's not going to be painful?
I think for the middle management is where the people who really have a huge impact internally with your culture, but also externally with your clients, customers, and everybody has clients or customers. There is some type of output, which the real thing that people are buying into, or what is your company, is your organization and what you stand for, not necessarily the product you sell.
Right.
And those people that are the boots on the ground are the people that deal with the customer facing part of the organization.
Yes. So how well do you think most organizations or organizations you've been a part of do at training up what it means to actually be a manager and a leader of people?
Some do well. The military does well. Where I came from, they do a pretty good job at it. Mm-hmm. And they have, they've been doing it a long time, and they have huge budgets, so it makes it a lot easier.
Yes.
A lot of organizations do not. Some of the civilian organizations I've worked for don't do a great job at it. There's just, it's one of those things. There's just not the resources, or that our organizations don't want to put the resources to that.
Time specifically as a resource.
And time being the biggest one, yeah.
We've seen where people are really good at a certain skill And what does that mean? They get promoted.
Yeah, and then they still want to do that skill. They never were trained to be the leaders. It's like what happens oftentimes in the sales force is the best salesperson becomes the sales manager. Next thing you know, sales are slumping for two reasons. Because they're no longer selling as much as they would like to, and they just aren't great leaders.
Right. So this table is
Or good leaders,
specifically
even.
going to, well, hopefully good too, great, right? This table is specifically going to deal with the skills of leadership.
Right.
Because it's a different skill than whatever technical role they're in. And they may still be fulfilling somewhat of a technical role, but then there's this additional, how do I lead, manage, and hold people accountable and do that in a way that gets the best out of everybody? We've kind of talked about. So we have recently read a book, and we are recommending that book to this table.
Yeah, that's the first. That's the start of our table group. Is prior to our first meeting of this leadership table is for them to read the book called The Motive by Lencioni.
Yes.
And it's one of the best books I've read in a long time. I've read it twice now because I read it a couple years ago, and then I've reread it again in the last couple months to refresh on it. And it's just a good primer to get your head right.
Looking at the why.
Looking at the why. Why do you choose to lead?
Yeah, and some people choose to lead. Other people find themselves leading. Now, you probably had a pretty good, I know what's next.
Yeah, you still choose to lead.
I guess you say yes when it comes your way, mostly, right?
That's right.
So he has two concepts, and we're going to just go through these kind of fast because they have had such an impact on us. But he has two concepts where he said leadership, you can be motivated by one of two things. There's the reward side of leadership, the benefits, and then the responsibility side or the duty. And we can kind of go back and forth, and he would say err toward responsibility over reward. But if you could just define that for us.
And this is by no means anything that I came up with or we came up with. This is all belongs to Patrick Lencioni and his genius of being able to just distill stuff down to just where it smacks you right in the face because it's so simple but yet powerful.
Yes.
And I watched a video of him talking about how it took him so long to realize that
he could do that.
that it was, or to realize that these were the two. He always wondered why leadership was so hard. He goes, it took him, decades of doing what he does great, things that he does great for his leadership and building teams. And he said it took him a while to realize it, and that when he realized it was so simple, it was like a light bulb coming on. And but he also says that, you're rewards based or you're what was the other one? Responsibility based. I'm sorry, that's terrible. And you're never 100% either one. Right. More than likely, you veer in and out. He hopes that everybody stays responsibility driven and not reward driven. And I know we've all seen it, and having been in leadership positions, I think back and I've caught myself in both. At times I shouldn't have been, and I regret it now. Every time I read a leadership book, I look and go, "Boy, I messed that up."
But we can always see it better in hindsight.
He talks about reward based, which is the guy that wants to get, and organizations do this, especially ones that are very hierarchical, where you stay so many years and you go to this position, you stay another set of years and you go to this position. Federal government's terrible about that. You've been here the longest, you get promoted, or, a lot of jobs are like that, and it's just not the best way to do business.
Yes.
What happens is it becomes hey, I've been here the longest, I deserve it. I've built the most buildings, I deserve it. I've built the most expensive buildings, I deserve it. I should get this so I don't have to go to all these meetings anymore. Yes. And man, I got this. My status is higher in the society or in my community or in my culture. It's just all about things that I really don't have to do. I don't have to do the uncomfortable stuff I don't want to do anymore and delegate that crap to somebody else.
Yes.
But you really can't all of it. Where with the other side of that is you want to do the responsible things. You want to have good meetings. And one thing that Lencioni talks about, and I'd like to talk about a little bit further, is the best time to look at a leader or a manager, because I don't know if he would really call them leaders, but other than in name only or title only, is when they're in meetings and how they conduct meetings.
So if somebody is a rewards-centered leader, and let's just say
they want to have the hard conversations and stuff too. So
yeah. So if they're reward-driven, like, what am I going to get out of this? How does a meeting fit that? It doesn't fit it very well, does it? But how would you see somebody who is reward-centered kind of showing up in a meeting if that's their motivation?
I think the way I look at it is they come to a meeting knowing that they have to be there and looking forward to the input of everyone else there and the uncomfortableness that sometimes comes of having to make decisions, but getting the best information. Because and I think this is in the motive in the book also, is that if you're having bad meetings, you're making bad decisions. You're not getting the good information that you should. And a leader that's really reward-centered is, they're tired of going. I don't want to go to meetings. I could, somebody else can do that.
Yes.
But then they're making decisions sometimes not without the best information. A lot of times they're making it with the yes man decisions.
Yes. Yeah. So somebody with a reward mindset, it sounds like I work myself out of that.
Yeah.
I don't have to be visible. I don't have to be around. And that's not to say that some things should get delegated, for sure. I mean, we did a whole podcast on delegation, and knowing what to delegate. But a responsibility-driven leader doesn't delegate what is theirs to do, which would be building the team, having a hard conversation. We've talked a lot about you can't delegate a hard conversation.
And that's one of the first things that people try to get rid of. Is the counseling, the developing people, and the helping your subordinates grow. That's something that they try to get rid of pretty quick.
Yes. So visibility, we talked a lot about that. How visible do you need to be without being overly so, and finding that balance. Dealing with discomfort. So it's not just hard conversations, but hard decisions, right? They have to be made. So if somebody was responsibility driven, and there's both R's. I feel like I'm going to go back and forth between. The way we want to deal with it is, okay, I welcome the hard decision, or I welcome the hard conversation. Do you think that's accurate?
I think they see it as, as a responsibility, as their number one job. If you're the leader that, cares about building your team, and Colin Powell, I think, may have been the one that said this, is people don't care what you think. No, I'm sorry. Can we cut that out, Trent, that little spot there? Okay. I think Colin Powell said that people don't care what you know till they know that you care.
Yes.
And I think that, having the hard conversations and growing people are the way you let people know you care. Giving positive feedback, giving recognition, not just positive feedback, giving good feedback where people can grow.
Yes. And some people may think, what's the phrase we throw around? That's why they pay me the big bucks.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
Pay me the big bucks. That's why they pay you the big bucks. It's not they pay me the big bucks to disappear, not be present, not deal with anything uncomfortable.
Not because I've been there 15 years and I've stuck to it because I couldn't find anything else to do.
Right, exactly. But it's somebody who they know their value in that, yes, but they know what's theirs to do as a leader. And that's one of the hardest to me. Like, I can tell you, I'm not a fan of hard conversations. I mean, I think there are a few people who just thrive in that problem-solving kind of place. I'm not one of them, and a lot of people who find themselves in middle management probably aren't, which is why we want to train it.
Well, and it is something that can be trained.
Yes.
You hear people say, well, they're born leaders and stuff, and there are people who are born with traits and traits are nurtured throughout their lives that lend them to be good leaders, great leaders. Yes. But there are also people who have came from really hard situations in life and learned to be really good leaders.
Yes. And that reminds me of another, I won't take us way off because we'll probably do a whole podcast on it, but you have recently completed a training on EQ, which is like emotional intelligence.
Yeah, emotional intelligence.
And some have said that emotional intelligence may be the number one indicator of whether somebody's going to be successful.
That's right. And we're going to really lean heavily on the emotional intelligence impact on everything from feedback, recognition, all the hard conversations, everything that we're going to talk about in this leadership growth opportunity table that we're having at Dow Smith Company, that we hope to be able to offer to the wider audience, because it's a much needed, very overlooked area in growth.
Yeah. And they
and
say
management.
EQ can actually change.
Yeah, you can change. Unlike with like DISC assessments and the personality assessments, there are factions that say that you can change the personality, does change over time some, but for the most part, it's set a little bit by the time, especially by the time you're in your 20s or so. That's it. But EQ is not. It is something that you can do things and focus on things to make a little bit better, to make you a little better. And where EQ really pushes the needle in an organization or a workplace is with the psychological safety that people feel. Because if you're in a workplace where the leadership or just a majority of the people have really low, emotional intelligence or EQ scores or abilities, whatever you want to call it, because a score, it's really not a score. It's just a bunch of facts, basically. And just because, I score 77 and Philip scores 85 doesn't make us any different, because he has different set of things that were higher than I did. I wasn't surprised when I saw mine. One of mine was self-control. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I know I'll throw a fit in a heartbeat. I used to fly helicopters, now I fly off the handle occasionally.
Yeah.
But, and that's something that I have worked on. Believe me, it's much better than it used to be. But it is something that can be trained, and it's something that we want. But anyway, going back to the psychological safety, back to where I was at, where people feel free to express themselves and innovate, because if psychological safety in an organization is low, innovation is going to be squashed.
That's right.
And that is, that's been proven over and over again. So the key is to try to get the EQ up so that the psychological safety can go up. And we're going to focus a lot on that, and maybe not use it as a main topic, but a overarching thing that touches everything that we're talking about in the next 12 months.
Yes. I've had people before come to me and not understand, like in a coaching setting, like, I'm the best person at this job. Why have I not gotten promoted?
Yeah.
And what's often holding them back is that lack of EQ, which, if you're not familiar with those terms too, it's sort of what's it like to be on the other side of me, knowing how I manage myself and knowing how I work with other people, you can grow in that. And so I think that, like you said, it's not a topic in and of itself, but it's something that as we do all this training, we're able to say, okay, now what's it like to be on the other side of you while you're working with somebody.
And one of the things I got out of the training that I really liked was a quote, and I don't know where it came from, but it said that EQ is the vessel for your IQ. It's how it's the manifestation of your IQ.
Yes. So even if you're the smartest person in the room, but your EQ is low, nobody's going to know you're the smartest person in the room, or they'll think exactly the opposite. So, so another thing in the motive and kind of what we're looking at with training is building a cohesive team. That's one of his points, is that somebody in leadership has the ability to pull together that. So how do you think how are we going to get practical with some of these guys around the table on what it means to really build a team?
I think we're going to let them know how important being clear in your communications is. And how big, one of the things I always say is the biggest fallacy in communication is that it actually happens.
Yes.
We got to make sure that, during conversation, there are two people. There's the one saying it and the one receiving it. We got a sender and a receiver.
For sure.
So, I think that's probably one of the big things is just
practicing, communication. Just, even if you go down to the thing of, okay, I'm going to tell you something,
then I want you to come back in 5 minutes and tell that person that, and
Yes.
just that little thing where you go around the
telephone
table,
game.
the eyewitness, around the table thing. Just
Yeah.
there are a lot of little exercises like that we can
Yes.
do.
Yeah. You've built in some things. So we have a curriculum. And if this is something anybody listening out there is interested in doing in your organization, we have a 12-month plan. So it'd be a once a month gathering around a certain topic. We are going to pull in the pillars of IWI, which let's name them again. We always do: leadership, growth, recognition, balance, compensation, and feedback.
Look
I
at
did
you
it.
get them
I
all
got them
six. That's
all.
awesome.
They're
I
always
did
in a
the
different
same
order.
thing one day last week.
So it's going to have all those pillars in it, but it's also going to have some exercises where they can say, hey, where this week or where in the past month did I struggle with a hard conversation, or where did I hesitate to be clear and communicate? So we're going to let them come up with some real life and discuss it in a safe place around the table, because we're hoping that over 12 months, psychological safety is going to build, don't you think?
Yeah, I think well, it will. There's
Yeah.
no doubt. And we'll do an assessment, through the Blue EQ that we got certified through. We'll do an assessment with those folks, and then throughout the year work on it and go back at about probably the 6-month time frame and redo it.
Yeah.
And
See,
and help people help the participants develop a mapping or develop their growth map where they can sit and work on a couple things. If you got 10 things you need to work on, then you're wasting your time trying to work on all of them.
Yes.
You gotta pick ones that you can impact,
Mm-hmm.
and not all the bad ones. You need to pick the ones that are pretty good
Leverage your
and
strength.
make them better. Because a lot of times when you pull those up and strengthen those, you also pull up the others.
Mm-hmm. So what we're looking at is a table, probably going to have maybe 7 people around this one, something like that, and meeting for the course of a year, looking at all these different topics, practicing it. You've got some really good reflections for them to do silently.
Yeah.
Kind of like take a look inward, see how you do on this or that part of leadership, management, accountability, and then bring it to the group. How do you think this is going to make a difference in the organization?
I think we'll see fairly immediate impact at the localized, with the people that are there, because we have people from every facet, every little section. There'll be a little cross-pollination going on that doesn't normally happen.
Yes.
And it'll be outside of the project manager, construction tech, super office guy. It'll be outside of that a little bit. It'll be more of them talking a common thing about, leadership.
As a philosophy.
No
No matter what their role.
Yeah.
Now, the people that we have in this, we know that they do have a leadership role. They do have other people that they're responsible for.
And one of the byproducts to this, the reason I really like the way it's set up right now is, with it being a lot of cross-pollination, is that's one of the best ways to build a strong workplace culture, is having people who don't normally work together collaborate.
Yes. They start to appreciate what each other does and see the strengths around the table, and that you can't do it all on your own.
Common pain.
Common pain, exactly. So anyway, we just want to make that invitation to anybody out there that we feel like, we're having this table at Dow Smith Company, and it's gonna make us stronger. It's gonna make us have a better team. It's gonna help people to use gifts they didn't even know they had. It's going to give people that feeling of growth that we talk about. Wow, I'm stepping in from just kind of being in a technical role to now I'm taking on more. And so if that's something that anybody wants, we're happy to bring it to you and happy to answer any questions about that. So I can't wait. We're starting this week.
Yep.
Yeah.
In 3 days.
In 3 days, we're getting it going, and we'd be happy to come do it elsewhere. So.
And the beauty of it, too, is it doesn't have to be a one company specific. What we've learned from our other table groups is it doesn't have to all be construction. We've got IT, we've got people who have nonprofits, we've got people who have employees that work remotely, and we've got churches. It's
medical.
We've got medical, so we've got a little bit of everything. But in leadership, all the same issues come up.
There's still
They
people.
all come
There's
up.
still people.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, what would be ideal is if there could be the leader of an organization sitting at a table like we already have and learning, okay, how do I make a great culture? And then taking everyone that's in your middle management role, even like you said, if it's a small company, they may not have many, and they can combine with other groups and see different industries. And like you say, that's still the same because we're still working with people. But then that's going to affect change more quickly than just, a leader sitting at a table. Other people buying in, other people knowing, hey, I have part of making this a great place to work too. So I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait till.
It's a full circle moment for me because when Dow and I started talking about training years ago, it was around the middle management. Middle management was always what he wanted to train, and even Gary Grisham, who was one of the, basically the founders, the beginning of good at Dow Smith. Gary always thought there needed to be a middle management level training. Yes. So it's really been a passion project, and I think we've just now got to where we're ready as an organization to really bring something meaningful to it, because we've learned so much over the last about a year and a half with some of the endeavors we've had with the business owners and the current tables we have, and some of the things that have been going on internally in Dow Smith too, to sort of prep the battlefield for us. We've done some tactical patience over the last year or so. Yeah.
Well, it's ready. It's about to launch on Thursday, and we want to invite any others to reach out to us. What's a good way, Tony? That probably an email they could shoot us.
Anthony.McConnell at dowsmith.com, or you can go to our website, Irresistible Workplace Initiative, all one word, .com, and fill out contact us. And you can also click on our podcasts on there, and also download one of our little booklets.
I think we're good for today. We covered a lot of that. So we'll hope to let everybody know next time maybe some of how that's going. I'm sure it's going to come up in some of our conversations. It's going to be great.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Irresistible Workplace Initiative podcast. Be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. We will see you on the next one.